Okay, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome. There's going to be a lot of people entering. So,
That's good.
yes. Um, I'll just quickly, as I wait for more people to enter, we will start on time. So if people are late, it's too bad. We're going to start anyway. Um, so yes, just to kind of give a little uh, idea of what we're doing today. If you don't know, I mean, you would think you know if you've registered, but basically it's all about funding applications, specifically for IPF and Bell Fund. So guessing everyone, if not most people on this call are interested in learning because they are going to be applying. So make sure to take notes and ask questions. The chat will be the main way we'll be getting questions just because there's so many people in this call. So please, if you do have questions, feel free to either put them in the chat now, or you can, save them for later. It's up to you. But that's just a bit of housekeeping for that. And yeah, I guess welcome, because we're going to start in a minute. So welcome everyone. And I just wanted to give a quick overview of membership of Web Series Canada. If you're not already a member, you can see on the shared screen here some of the perks. We've updated some things, and offering some new things. So, for example, we're going to start doing Member Mondays to promote member content. So, if you are a member, you will be basically emailed a Google form that you can fill out and submit, and we can basically promote your stuff when you have stuff to promote. So that's new. And obviously, the main big point is the coaching program, which we will be launching soon. We don't have an official launch date just yet, but we will be launching it soon for this year. And there's going to be a few differences, but pretty much the same as last year, 1 hour coaching in different categories you get to choose. And of course, there's also, with membership, you also get discounts on submission for TIA WebFest and festival passes, and also discounts to other festivals and events and things like that. So if you do have any questions, and if you're not a member yet, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'm going to maybe pass this off to Kate if you want to say a couple words. Do you want to say something, Kate? I will stop.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Green, and I'm the Vice Chair of Web Series Canada. Welcome today. It's going to be a great session with both John and Rachel, and we're very excited. It's my pleasure to introduce John Taylor to you. First up, John's a respected digital media executive, content producer, and entrepreneur based in Toronto. He is the CEO of the Independent Production Fund, Canada's oldest funding agency, and a pioneer in web series development. So with no further ado, John, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Leah. Great turnout. Amazing. Our program deadline in March is always very oversubscribed, and it does feel like this is going to be one of those years. This is a really, really good turnout. I'm excited. I'm going to share my screen. There's so many of you guys on the call that it's going to be hard for me to catch questions as we go. So I'll ask Leah or Kate to just, I'm comfortable with questions throughout and being interrupted. We can also just do it at the end, however you guys want to do it. But
I will keep an eye on the chat.
So if someone can help me stay on top of things, let me know. The other thing I'll say just out of the top is I understand there's people from across Canada. There's subtle differences in stuff, the Ontario versus BC versus elsewhere. So if you do ask questions, you might want to flag what region you're in, and it might help us craft our answer to be specific to your region. It's mostly the same. We're a national organization, but there are some differences. For example, if you've got development funding from Ontario Creates in your thing, that might have an implication to our program, et cetera. And I'm going to cover some of that in our presentation. So I'll get going. I'm going to talk for probably half hour, 40 minutes. I'm going to leave time at the end for questions, hopefully. I'll do my best. Also, like I said, if there's anything throughout, I'm open to it. You heard in the intro, we are the Independent Production Fund. We're supporting Canadian creators, writers, producers. We do narratives, so we do scripted only. We don't do documentary. You're going to hear from Rachel a little later on related to Belfund, and they do factual, so you can ask her those questions. But for everyone who's interested in scripted short form and TV, we do both. I'm going to fill you in. So we've got 2 programs focused on short form and 1 focused on TV. I've bolded them. Technically, we have 4 programs, including our professional development or industrial. This is where we industry development. This is where we partnership with festivals, etc. But the first 3 are on this list are really for you guys. Short form series development and short form series production. And then there's also Kojiko TV production, which is more full length primetime destined TV shows. Kate also mentioned we're the oldest. I'm not 100% sure if that's true. Rogers Group of Fund was around the same time, but it looks like our articles of incorporation were from 1989, 1990. So regardless, we've been here for 3 decades. I've been here for over 3 years. In that time since 1990, we've almost done $100 million into the industry, over 1,000 projects, including over 300 TV shows, 170 short form productions, and 90 and counting in development. I'm going to talk to you about our short form series program first. We'll cover some of the broad basics of why short form, in case some of you aren't familiar with the format, or even you're thinking about going into it. Maybe you've done it before, but we like to reset with the why of this format. So what they are is pretty simple. It's 20 minutes or less per episode. So this is an episodic series. You're planning it like a TV show. Sometimes they're called web series or digital series. The industry is very inconsistent with the naming. Our whole goal, though, is just to make a format that's a bit more accessible to emerging producers. We only do scripted, and so that's an important note, as I mentioned. Why it really matters to us, and we think about this. There's an opportunity for new voices because you're not competing against those bigger budget TV shows, which you will see in our Kojiko program. It creates a much more wide open playing field. There's a bit fewer barriers to entry. The smaller budgets mean less financing required. It's a great place to learn and grow. If you're a writer in a room or you're a producer on a short film and you're trying to break into TV, this is a way to get your IP. You're now in the driver's seat. You might be the creator. You might be the lead writer. It's kind of a miniature showrunner incubator in that short form format. And again, you have a lot less competition from big production companies. So a great way to build your company. Also a great way to create IP that you are the owner of. What doesn't work for short form really is that big broad spectrum, you could picture it Sunday night at 8 o'clock on a major broadcaster. Those shows don't translate great into the digital space. The digital space is, the way the system works is algorithms help find you and connect you with your audience. And when it's for everyone, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. It's also, all the funds, including us, favor uniqueness. We want to see those unique projects. So don't try to make a short version of, what you would think is a typical half hour, a 60-minute show, something that's unique. Be confident in your point of view, target that niche audience. These are kind of the opposite things of what you might hear in TV, but underrepresented characters, topics, locations are actually a plus in the web series space, and definitely connect your passion to your story. How we define success is something we talk about every year. Narrowly defined, it's revenue, and we are all in the business. We got to keep our lights on and pay our staff and crews. So how you're going to make some money is everything you probably already know: domestic licenses, international licenses, ad revenue. We've seen our projects make money on merchandising, subsequent works, which means if you take your short form series and it becomes something else like a film or a full-length TV show, format sales, etc. Other revenue related activities. We're interested in these things. It could be transaction, it could be download, it could be Patreon. We see some e-commerce around merch, like I said, but I think that's too narrow. The reason we do short form is more than just the revenue. The revenue is important. We're an equity investor. We'll talk about that. We want you to be successful businessy, but ultimately personal growth is actually a really important part of this format. So this is a great opportunity to grow your experience, improve your resume, grow your company. Think about it as a piece of your slate. Develop a team. You got IP now that's going to into market. You get market and audience research. You get every excuse you have for a project is an excuse to talk to someone and create industry engagement, even if that project's not the thing that you end up partnering on. Maybe that project is the excuse that you had that initial 1, 2, 3 conversations with people, then you're growing your network. And of course, also revenue. Revenue is important. I'm going to walk you through our program. The development phase is first, the production phase is second. I'll walk you through both. The goals of this program, the development, our short form series as a whole align with what I just described. We want strong creative materials. We want to encourage the incubation of new talent. And we want to provide opportunities for business development, etc. We also, an important piece is that third bullet, attaching people who are more senior to your project. So you're the owner, you're the project lead, but this is a reason for you to connect with someone, and our development budget will help you pay someone who's above your pay grade to be a part of your project. And that's a really important part of the mentorship program and a value of the program. Some key dates, I'm going to state them at the end, but our application portal will open. It's not open yet. It will open no later than February 1st. It might be before that. Our application deadline this year is March 1st. Decisions will come mid-April, and then the first payments were for you guys to get the ball rolling, typically come May and June. We say spring, summer. It's not too long a contracting period for our development phase. So those are the key dates for this year. Those are also on our website. All of this that I'm about to tell you has been updated on our website this month. So what's eligible? Short form, less than 20 minutes per episode, has to be scripted. That's an IPF thing. Other funds don't have that restriction. Any genre though, drama, comedy, sci-fi, horror. You tell us what is popular and trending. We don't know, so we don't limit it. It's important to note anthologies are permitted, so it doesn't have to have a season arc. Each episode, kind of like The Twilight Zone or Black Mirror, you can do anthologies. We've seen some really great anthology series come through our program. And animated. Animated is also permitted. And like I said, the focus is really on new and original creative concepts. So, the last couple of years, the top 2 genres we've seen have been comedy and horror. There's no reason why you can't make a rom-com, but we have seen more horror and comedy in recent years. Eligibility criteria is pretty basic. You need to be a Canadian production company. A Canadian writer must be attached to the series, and a minimum of 75% of the expenses must be spent in Canada. Not eligible over 20 minutes is pretty obvious. Nonfiction, nonfiction or docuseries, reality, etc. And subsequent seasons. Unfortunately, we are unable to fund your second seasons. We fund your first season. If we and hopefully we're successful, if we also allowed second seasons, it would take away from the funding that we would have available to people who are making their first season. Our goal is to really help that first step, the emerging producer. And so we don't fund second seasons. The good news is currently, in past years, the CMF has run a subsequent season program. Every year, check if that still exists, but in the past, it's been a valuable stopgap for people who are successful with their first season. One note on this, other funds have different rules. You're going to hear from Rachel from Bell Fund, but as you think of building your finance plan, sure, we have a minimum of 75% expenses in Canada. The other fund might have a different set of rules. So you do have to, when you think about your tax credits, they have different sets of rules. You have to pay attention when you're building your finance plan. We're often the most flexible. We're often the first one in, and we're trying to get you that first vote of confidence. But the project likely needs financing from someone other than us to get the project made. So you will need to pay attention to the details of other funds. Okay. What are we looking for in the application? Here's what you're going to apply with. A creative pitch. That's a synopsis of the series, story arc, main characters. It is not a Bible. It's not a script. You can write some sample scripts, but ultimately it's a maximum of 3 pages, and it's important. We get hundreds of applications. It's important to the evaluators that you know how to submit a concise application as much as a compelling one. And so stick to the maximum of 3 pages. And you'll be good, and you don't have to write an entire Bible, but you do have to explain who your main characters are, format of a typical episode, some examples of the type of writing we're going to see, etc. You have to submit with your team, so it's going to be your credits, resumes of all the main people. Once again, the Canadian writer with a previous credited experience needs to be attached. A short film credit is enough for us. It's not the same with all funds, but for us, that's enough of a credit. You just have to be not brand new. The producer, of course, and a mentor. And this is important. An experienced story editor or development executive needs to be attached to your project for you to apply. You would have a deal with them that says that if you get development funding from us, you will be paying them to be part of your team. This is an important part. You don't want, like, some mistakes that people make is the one name is in too many boxes. So if you're kind of a solo writer, producer, actor, you're also going to be the something, and you pull in maybe someone of your equal, a friend, to be your mentor. It's technically eligible, but you didn't do yourself any services because you didn't do yourself any favor, because TV is a team sport. Making a show and building a crew is really important, and they go hand in hand. And so it's important confidence building for evaluators when they're looking at your projects, and financiers that want to fund your project, that you have a good team in place. So look at the mentor. That's a requirement of ours. It's a mandatory. Look at it as an opportunity to expand your network and attach people that you want to work with that are above you. They're a little bit ahead, and you're going to pay them. If you get successful with us, that you're going to give them money. So mentor must be attached. We also have a bit of a blank page. So it's a one-page vision document. We sometimes get questions, what is that? What am I doing? Because it doesn't have a template. It's really for you to sell your project. It's really for you to sell the series beyond the 3-page creative document. It's stuff that doesn't fit nicely in the creative bucket. It's something that feels inspirational and passionate. Why does this need to be made now? Why you? What do you hope it will accomplish by being created and existing in the world, etc. So some people struggle with the blank page of what am I saying? What's my vision? But the vision is really your passion and your inspiration behind the concept.
John, just before you
yeah,
keep
please.
going, there are a couple questions in the chat.
Thank you.
So one is just to confirm that unscripted reality and documentary is not like, you don't fund those. It's just
No.
scripted drama.
No, scripted dramas only. Thank you.
Okay. And then episodic or anthology series, like, how do you expect the story arc to look like? That's one question.
So episodic season arc, right? So each episode can have its own arc, of course, but the whole season has an arc. Anthology is like Twilight Zone. It's a theme like horror, and each one is its own scary story, but the characters and the situations change each episode. So each one is its own little short film, basically, each episode in an anthology. So the season doesn't have an arc in an anthology. It has a theme called horror, and it all fits under the bucket.
Would you want it to look like a sentence if it's per episode, or just this whole story arc? Like, I guess they're asking more the format of what you want it to actually look like in the application.
Look like in the application document. Got it. It's just example episodes. You don't have to write the whole season. So you would say, here's the theme that we're building it under. An animated series we had that was an anthology, was really about people struggling with mental health, and it was funny and kind of heartfelt. And each episode had different characters in them, and we followed their stories around, and it was their personal take. But the thread that carried it was that they were all basically kind of living alone in their own bubbles. And that was the theme that they wanted to explore, but each episode was its own thing. You don't need to write every episode. You're not writing all the scripts yet. We're giving you the development money to create a Bible where you will write the episode synopsis, the one sentence for each episode. But for the 3-page creative document, it's what's the theme? Could be how this season will go if it's not an anthology, but inside an anthology, it's what's the thread that ties them all together, and some examples of a couple of episodes. And if you want, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you finish what you were saying if you want to.
I was going to say, if some people find it useful, even in the 3-page document, to give some writing samples. So if there's if they want to describe how, it's going to be really choppy and conversational, then they might share some example lines, but you don't have to write a script for our application, for our development application.
Okay, a couple more questions. I'm not going to do all of them. I'll do them kind of in chunks, but one is, can you have a story editor and a development exec?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
And then
it's great if you do. Yeah.
Okay, great. And is there a minimum or maximum amount of episodes per season?
No, there isn't. Typically what we see is kind of 6 to 10, 8, 12 would be a lot. The typical episode count, minute count, is kind of in the 12 to 15 range. couple of years ago, it was kind of 8 to 10. It's creeped up. And we're definitely seeing a lot more that are coming in right at 20 minutes because they're really trying to replicate that half hour. The total amount of content, now I'm kind of talking about you're developing it, but even when you get to production, the amount of content that this plan is going to make is kind of 60 to 90 minutes total across all. So if you have 6 episodes times 20, or you're going to cut that down and make 8 episodes times 12, something like that. It usually the budget size translates to about that many minutes. But we don't have a, you can make as many episodes as you want. You can actually pitch, 1-minute episodes if you wanted, and you had a compelling pitch for that.
Cool. Okay, couple more questions just because they're related to this section that you were talking about.
Yeah.
One is one person's asking about citizenship of producers. They have 2 producers who are Canadian, but 1 producer who's an Ontario resident in their process of getting PR. Would this team still be qualified?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
For us, yes. Again, check the details with other funds and ask Rachel the same question.
Okay. And if you've written a script, can that be attached to the application?
You can, yeah. I'm going to cover. Yeah, you can. So you can put it in supplementary materials. It's not part of your 3-page creative, but you can attach. There's a bucket that's other material you want to attach, and you can attach it. You do have to note about previous phases of development. So if you've written the script by yourself, that's one thing. If you got development money and got that developed, you should pre-disclose it, because some of the eligibility checking our team does is about is this already too far along in your development? And thus you probably don't need our development money. You should be going directly for production funding with someone else who has production funding. So if you're just trying to get into our development pipeline because you want access to our production funding, it doesn't work. And so you have to disclose your previous phases of development. But if you really have a script and that's it, and the goal with this, our money is to help you take the concept that you might have written into a script and make it better and actually turn it into something that's going to get shot, that would be eligible. So
Cool.
it's not, it's definitely, you can definitely attach it. I would just say that if you're too far, be careful that you're not too far along in development, because then you'd be wasting your time applying to us. Okay.
Great. You can continue. That's all.
All right. Thank you. Good batch, Leah. Thank you. Okay, so other things you're going to apply with the development budget. There's a template on our website, development schedule, how you will spend our money and timeline. Again, development, this is not production. And a new for this year is a sustainability checklist. So there is also a template that you can check. It's basically a 2-pager. It's coming. So CBC, Netflix have already rolled out requirements for budgets, over $400,000, which is typically the type of production size that short form series will make. It definitely fits in our wheelhouse. They are requiring carbon calculators. How are you starting to think about your green storytelling considerations and also your green production techniques? For us, it's not something that we are evaluating to make or break the project. It's really to help you. Like, we're not deciding. The evaluators aren't choosing a project that's more green over another. What's important, though, is that you're including it in your materials to show that you started thinking about it. So it's a simple 2-pager that actually starts prompting you with questions about how you're thinking about sustainable. Also, everyone who comes through our development program, I'll talk about the numbers in a little bit, but if you are funded for us for development, we offer basically free sustainable production training. So you will understand, you'll get trained in sustainable production techniques, which is going to be a requirement for you to create production in partnership with CBC, Netflix, et cetera. Others are announcing. So it feels like, just to help you guys get ahead of the curve on that, it's a great phase of your career, potentially, to start learning these things. And that size of budget and the size of minutes that you're shooting is a really great place to dabble in carbon calculations, et cetera, because it's not so overwhelming. So we have a sustainability checklist, which you will download from our site and just fill out. As I mentioned, the previous phases of development, an important note. So for producers right now that are in Ontario, so this program, we are a partner of CMF. They basically, increase the amount of budget we have. The IPF runs the program and designed the program. The CMF like the program, and they partner with us by giving us money to fund more projects, basically. So instead of funding 10 or 15 a year, we can now fund 20 or 30 a year for development, which is great. However, one caveat is the CMF have rules that you cannot fund they can't fund the same development activity from two different funds. So they're a partner of ours. And for example, they're also a partner with Ontario Creates on the CMF Ontario Creates Futures Forward program. So if you're already receiving Ontario Creates CMF Future Forward development money, those activities are not going to be eligible in the IPF development program. You can combine the money together. You can take development, put you can stack development money on top of each other. However, the expenses have to be separate, so it makes it complex. So definitely, here's what I would say is if you are planning on or already receiving for Ontario producers that Futures Forward program with the CMF, definitely reach out to us and or the CMF to talk through which parts would be eligible or not, so that you are applying to us to be clear on that. Okay, I'll keep going. So what you receive from us in development is up to $30,000, which will go to your development. The expenses, I'll talk about on the next slide. Funding is in a form of a repayable advance. You will get paid back. You will pay us back in two scenarios. If we provide you production funding, repayment is taken right at that point. So you don't have to worry about it. We're funding you for production. We just get the development loan repaid. If we don't provide you with production funding, repayment is due if you go to photography. The good news in that is that means you've got funding from someone else, you financed your production some other way, and you would basically just put us in your production budget as a development expense, which is eligible, depending on how you get financed. And so you would, if you don't go to production and you don't actually start shooting, you don't pay us back. If you get production funding from us, you'll pay us back right then. I should note, CMF's been a partner of ours, like I said, since the beginning. You're going to contract with both CMF and IPF. So if you got $30,000 from us, it would be $15,000 from us and $15,000 from CMF, or portion and a portion, depending on how much money they've given us that year. And they have different paybacks. So their payback is principal photography. So there's a little bit of complexity in there. Again, if you haven't, this is all good news. If you get our money, the complexity comes after you've been funded. We answer all your questions. We do info sessions. The CMF is also there to support you as well, because we want you to succeed. But just so you know, you will pay us back when you get to production. Eligible expenses for the $30,000, a demo, proof of concept, trailer, etc. 3 episode scripts. So that's the point where you're taking money to pay yourself and pay for writers to write the script. You only need to write 3. You don't need to write the whole season. You will actually write a whole Bible, basically a synopsis for the entire season. Each episode of the first season gets their little blurb, the story arc, all the character descriptions, locations. It's your series Bible. And that's what we're giving you the money to pay yourself and pay your team to create. Proof of demo, just so you have it, is usually 1/3 of the 30,000. So we've seen proof of concept shot for 5,000, and that's a little low. It's definitely doable. We've seen it as high as 15, maybe even higher. I think the typical range, so people are spending around $10,000 to shoot their proof of concept, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something. It's a requirement that you need to apply for production funding, not just with us, but with other people, other funds. Just so you have a little bit on the proof of concept visual demo. It's basically, you have a style that you want to project. This is how you're going to show it. There's no length. Like I said, a couple minutes. You're trying to demonstrate the tone. Seek audience feedback. Prove target audience assumption. So basically, you're shooting a thing. You're showing that visual style that matches your script. If you've got special effects, you're going to show that you can pull them off within that budget, etc. But also, you make this thing so that at the end of, say, August, when you're getting ready for fall production deadlines, funding deadlines, you put this up on the internet, or you do a closed room, audience surveys, and you get feedback because you've made some assumptions, you've made hypotheses about who your audience is. You use this proof of concept to validate your audience assumptions, collect data. Here's what I learned. And those pieces that leads to your marketing plan, which is going to be a requirement of your production application. So it's not just about showing a piece of the thing. It's actually to collect market data and leverage that data in your application for production funding. The goal of all of this is that we want you to get production finance and also begin those discussions with potential platform licenses. So other funds, other broadcaster, digital platforms, distributors, we're hoping that this program, our development program, gives you a great package to go and get financing and get your series into production. Speaking of production, we are also a production funder. It is important to note we're really a development fund. We've been doing production for a long time, but right now only projects that are successfully funded through our development program are eligible to apply for our production funding. This is just due to our size. We are not quite big enough to handle a production deadline and a development deadline simultaneously. So our development deadline is really the one and only way to get into our production funding. So you have to apply to us for development. The good news is there are other places to apply for production. Some of them have multiple deadlines a year. We are a little bit smaller, and so come to us for development. We'll give you the money to succeed at our production deadline, and also when you develop with us, you can go and get production funding from anyone else. And if we don't fund you for production, nature of the game, we're a little bit smaller. You can still take that material that was developed with the IPF funding and go try to find funding from someone else. And the good news is different. When we started in 2010, the IPF was the only web series funder. All these years later, there's a lot more of opportunity to get production funding. Everything that's required for the application is mostly what you've just completed. So those are the deliverables that you will be, the eligible expenses from our development program. So you're going to have made a Bible, you're going to have written 3 scripts, you've got a proof of concept video that has led to some audience identification, the preliminary engagement plan. You're going to make a production budget, a financing plan. You don't have to have it locked with us. Potential to confirm performers, key creative roles that you're ready to go with, production schedule, and a list of targets. So the very last bottom right bucket there, a list of target distributors and platforms. We don't need you to have a confirmed platform. We want to know who you're thinking about shopping it to. Kind of goes hand in hand with your audience identification and engagement plan, but you don't have to have a letter confirmed. It's a great boost to your application if you have a letter that says they're interested, or even a letter of commitment. That's fantastic, but it's not required for us. Again, that's maybe unique to the IPF. Definitely check the rules with other funds as you're going to apply to them. In our production deadline, we give you a maximum of $200,000 towards your production. The funds at this point are an equity investment. I can share the details of that, but basically we're just in the tier of equity if you have other people investing in your project. And again, once you're funded by us, we have meetings to fill you in on how all of that works. But ultimately, if you make money, we will get a cut. Eventually, we will get paid back. We never take, if you were to get a recoupment check, for example, we'd never take 100% of it till we're paid back. It's not like that. We take a percentage of whatever you get paid over time up to we're paid back. And then after that, our investment recoupment decreases. Too much details to cover on this call, but we're happy to fill those in should you be successful with our production funding. It's a good scenario to be discussing. Okay, so again, just to repeat the dates, application portal this year, it will be open no later than February 1st. The deadline is March 1st. Development decisions come mid-April. Funding is released spring and summer. Looking ahead to production, you want to be ready to apply to us around the first week of October. If you're planning, there are some funds in Canada that are a little earlier sometimes than us. They might have September deadline, even late August, I've seen. So if you're planning on hitting fall deadlines, our deadline might be later, so you might plan to go faster. Think of it this way: all that stuff that I had shown you on this slide is basically due for us end of September. And so if you're going to have an audience engagement plan, you want to have your proof of concept done in August so that you can gather some data. You want some time to gather data. So you want to plan on having your proof of concept shot by the end of the summer so that you could take some few weeks in September to actually collect audience data and come up with an engagement plan. That's us.
John.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just a question about deadlines and like applying. So if someone gets development funding this year, can they apply do they have to apply for production this year, or can they apply next year for production?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. It is this year. It's within the 1 year, and it's the way our fiscal year works. Our program budgets are depleted by the end of the year, and every year is a brand new year. There's no carryover. We talk every year with our board about, could we create a new fund that's like a separate sort of missed opportunity fund, etc. We don't have that yet. One day, maybe one day, but we do not have it yet. So if you want to apply to us for production, it's within the same year that you were developed. Most people, I would say 90% of projects, maybe higher, 95% of the projects do make our deadline. It's a doable timeline. You got two things going on at once. You're kind of on a dual path because you're developing your series, but you're also shooting this proof of concept, which is a mini production, and it's going to take a day or two and a bunch of planning. So you're kind of in production at the same time you're in development. People do it, and people did it before they had our development money. The fact that you have some money, $30,000 at least, to pay some crew and pay yourself for your time does make a difference, and it is doable to achieve the deadline. What I was going to say is one positive for us as well is that we don't, let's say you do apply to us, let's say you're successful, we have a really long window for you to complete your financing. The contract, you will say 12 months, but a lot of what we do after that is to just extend. So if you have an opportunity, once you're in our production, but you didn't get funding, let's say in the spring deadline, but you got feedback and they told you to come back in the fall deadline, etc., or you have a distribution plan, there was going to be a distribution advance that was going to fund your production, and it's taking a long time to complete that deal, we're very flexible. Once we're committed to you, the one thing I can extend is time for you to complete your financing. So at least we don't have a ticking clock on that. The production deadline, like I said, first week of October, and you will hear from us again 6 weeks later, mid-November. I will cover now. I know this is Web Series Canada, etc., but I do cover a few slides on the TV program because I think we're all in this. And many of us are in it in some ways to go all the way to big budgets. There's a big difference in the budget size, but if you're curious, the Cogeco TV program is almost the opposite. It's very much for established producers. We're finance completion in all of the major TV shows in Canada. It's a drama or mini series. Typically, these are the 60 minutes prime time. Prime time is an antiquated term, but it does its purpose by explaining the type of show it is. You can also do children's series with the Cogeco TV. There's no running time for those. So if you have children's ideas, it is a good program. It don't need target prime time, etc. But your eligibility bar is very high, very different than our development and short form series development and production programs. Other than being a Canadian producer, you have to have 2 years production experience. We're last in with the Cogeco program. With the IPF program, we're almost always first in, giving you that runway to complete your financing and get that production done. With the Cogeco, everything is in place. You've already got experience. You've already got a license. You're qualifying 6 out of 10. You know, the writer must be Canadian, etc. If you often we get co-pros, the Canadian portion of it has to be more than 50% ownership. You can't have already started production, but that show is ready to go, and we're almost always the last one in as finance completion. A lot of stuff that needs to be part of that application. I do like to share it with groups like this because it's an important piece. The Cogeco program that we run is an important piece of TV production financing in Canada, and it is in your future, and it does get complex. We're trying to give you your first start with the short form series. All the stuff you're going to apply with, Bible treatment, international sales reports, etc. We can, if you want to go deeper on the Cogeco program, we're happy to do a separate call, perhaps. No minimum, maximum requests. Typically, people are applying to us somewhere between 150, 300,000. But the budgets in this case, so the total budget in a short form series is going to be, 500,000, 4 to 6, 800,000. We have seen a few over $1 million. We have one that's over $2 million for a short form series. Is a very, very big budget. When you look at us giving you 200,000, they have a lot of other dominoes. They have to have everyone else and a distribution advance and a license to complete that big financing. Typically, it's less than $1 million, but over 400, depending on the region. The TV budgets are 10, $20 million, of which we're going to be 300, 400,000. And so we're kind of a 1% finance completion. Again, it's an equity investment, just so you know. If you are curious, application portal will open early March. We do deadlines somewhere in April. We'll announce that in a month or two, and then the decisions are June, and then development funds go pretty quick after that, and they go into production because we're often left in. I'm just going to take just a couple minutes here towards the end to talk about our evaluation process and give some tips. Evaluators are Canadian industry professionals, IPF board members, graduate level student film students, all supported by the IPF staff. So knowing me and knowing our team doesn't actually get you a yes. I don't choose who gets the money. We have a whole evaluation process and external people who run the process. Our job is to administer it. We do all the eligibility checking and make sure that everything is fair and transparent. And we have a partnership with CMF, and they also require this fair and transparency. So just trust the fact that it's not us, it's the evaluators and the process. Up to 50 individuals throughout the year participate in the evaluation of the program. So your application work is worth it. There are people really, really important process of viewing it. What are the evaluators looking for? Creative concept. It's the number one thing that drives us is the creative concept. Is this unique? Is it interesting? Is it innovative? Something I haven't seen before. It could even be a familiar story from a different point of view. Great writing is really table stakes. So that's the number one thing you're looking for. Team, probably the second thing. So once you've hooked the evaluators with your creative concept and thinking, wow, I really love this concept. How will I, hopefully that they can pull it off. And it's all about maintaining that confidence and excitement level with the rest of your application. When they look at the team, if the team is a little bit green, you start feeling that dip in confidence that this exciting idea will be pulled off. That's where that mentor comes in place. That's where you want to, you can boost that confidence up by attaching someone to your project. It's your project and your IP, but you've attached someone who's got some experience. That's an important part. So you're still in the driver's seat. So building a robust team that builds confidence with the evaluators is important. Feasibility. So this is simple nuts and bolts. Can this be done for the budget you've proposed? It's surprising how many times we see this incredible dream concept and then the budget makes no reference to all the special effects or the music or something that they've dreamt up on the creative. It's easy to fill your blank page with exciting things, but the evaluators and the evaluation process will very quickly see that you don't have that in your budget. It may be simple that you have a big star attached and you say that, but let's say they've said they're going to do it for scale or for free or something, but you make no reference of it in your budget. You want to attach the letter and say that, put them in the budget and say they're not charging their big fee. And here's the letter that confirms it. It's important to connect the dots like that. So feasibility is that next part. These tips I talked through, but don't rush your application. I do it, by the way. I'm telling you this. 50% of you will totally ignore that or just not do it. I've been there 11 o'clock, midnight. I'm trying to the portal's going to close. I'm desperately trying to apply. This is a message to myself as well as everyone else. Fake yourself to a deadline to be like 2 weeks before, a week before, and then take a breather and then look at it. Complete that early draft because you're going to catch stuff that you didn't see. It's a really funny thing. We all do it, but it is really relevant because it gives you time to sweat the details. Plan to reread it. Reread it as a whole, right? Grammar mistakes matter. Spelling mistakes matter. That confidence I was talking about. A sloppy application, evaluators get the feel that this will be a sloppy production, and then you start feeling that slip in confidence a bit. So it does matter to take the time to actually double check spelling. It's small things, but they can sometimes have a big impact. Part of that is not doing it alone. Ask questions. You can ask us, you can email us, you can book a call with us, but also you can reach out to the community, you can cold call people. You can leverage Web Series Canada potentially to connect with other people who have done it before and have applied and went through. Whether they were successful or not, they will share what they learned. This community is very strong, and it is important for you to not. We all have this habit of sitting in our bubble and doing the thing and applying. It's way better if you actually talk to people and gain that knowledge. You'll learn something about your application and about them. I talked about connecting the dots a little bit. You have an idea, it has to connect the dots throughout. Often you will have different people writing different parts of the application. So someone wrote the budget, someone wrote the creative, etc. One person really should look at everything so that you are seeing the whole big picture, because the application is not multiple parts as much as it is the sum of all of its parts. And so the whole picture is really important to being successful. So I think it's smart to take that break. That's why you create a deadline that's ahead. All the pieces might come in from different pieces, but one person should actually go and look, does everything make sense? Are the dots connected? Because that's exactly what the evaluators are going to do. Do your homework again. You could leverage our website, you can leverage Web Series Canada, but you should totally seek out and find others, look for what was funded in the past, learn from other people's mistakes. I'll stop there. I'm definitely ready for questions, but I always put this slide up. The email is info@, but we're very small. So if you email that, it's going to be one of the four of us that replies to your email. It could be me, Carly, and Mark are in our Toronto office. Catherine runs all of our French language programming. We do about 2/3 English and 1/3 French with our budget allocations, so you know. But we are here if you want to ask any questions, and our website has all of this info on it as well. So I'll stop there.
Okay, cool. We do have time for a few more questions. So there's one in the chat. When it comes to attaching more experienced mentor, story editor, or development executive, what level of experience is ideal that will elevate the application?
It's a great question. To be honest, a couple of years ago, I would have said it doesn't need to be, a big heavy hitter. You could just get someone who's got a few more years experience than you, maybe have done a web series, have been through it. It's a gauntlet to go from your idea to getting it seen by people. There's so many exit ramps that you're trying to avoid on your project. And honestly, exit ramps are okay because keep that, maybe it's never a no with a project, it's kind of a not now. Sometimes that happens, and then you're going to pull something off the shelf a couple of years later and all of a sudden it rolls. So don't worry about that. But it used to be that you could just, someone's been through that experience. Applications we've seen increasingly more and more recently have had some pretty heavy hitters attached. So someone who has actually been a writer or a head writer on major US TV shows. We've seen, so it's not necessary. We are in the business of trying to support emerging producers. We want this mentorship role to be attached to your project. It makes the project better, but really you get personal growth. But it's definitely a boost to your application. And I will tell you, you will be up against every year someone who has somehow leveraged a network or a program to attach someone who's got pretty good TV experience, and that it does fill the evaluators with confidence. It's kind of annoying in some ways because there is a gap between being a new producer and emerging and trying to get that first shot and bridging the canyon to becoming trusted by big budget and platforms, etc. So the bigger the person you can pull across that canyon to say it's a vote of confidence in your project, the better. So there is kind of no limit, and I have actually seen some names attached where you're like, wow, how did they get that person attached to the project? One more comment on that, Leah. The way the person is attached is actually noticeable in the application. So we've seen, imagine evaluators looking at hundreds of applications. They've seen the note that says like, I am interested, should there be funding, blah, blah, blah. And it's like the one sentence generic cut and paste letter or email. It doesn't have to be letter, by the way, it can be email. Just know that there's an application out there that you're up against that has like, when I met them, why I love this team, why I love this project, why I believe in the subject matter. And they've written 3 paragraphs about why they're attached to this project. And that does make a difference. That does resonate different with your application.
Cool. All right. I think we have about just under 10 minutes to get some more questions. So now is the time.
Great.
If anyone else has any other
I
questions.
went fast. I was worried I was going to run out of time.
You did. You went right to it. Does anyone
Maybe I
have
went
any
too
other
fast
questions?
and there's no one could think of questions.
Oh, I guess a question for the product, I'll ask since I'm waiting for someone to write another question. For the production side, you do have to have a like a distributor or network attached for the production.
You don't have to have anyone attached. Nope. On
Oh.
production, we want to know who you're interested. So you would tell us who your target platforms are. But for the IPF, you don't have to have a commitment from a platform. For other
Okay.
funds, I think every other fund you do require
Yeah.
that commitment, but the IPF does not. And that's because at our fall deadline, we are typically the first one in. you're going to be applying in the spring, probably to other funds, maybe. And so you've got sort of 5 months there to make that distributor connection. And we believe that our first vote of confidence helps you close some of those discussions. So we don't need someone else to be the vote of confidence. We'll be your first vote of confidence.
Cool. Question is there a regional requirement or preferences for geographic distance? I'm not sure if that's referring to the whole project or.
There's no requirement. We're the creative is number one, and it's a competition. We're an equity investor. We want the project to be successful, so we don't create, if this is the question, we don't create if you're from this region, you get a boost of points or et cetera, et cetera. We want, and the reason we were doing this call is we want to see people from across Canada represented in our success. We can see it in the applications. So it's improving. We're getting more applications from a more diverse set of regions in Canada, but the success rate still needs to improve. And that's part of the reason why we make ourselves available to do this. So it's not a bonus, it's not a detriment or a benefit to be from a region, say outside of Southern Ontario. However, we want to see this. We're taking our sponsorship dollars and putting them out into the region so that we can do training and workshopping and making sure that we're creating the same level of potential success in other regions in Canada. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. There's a few more. Do dramatic reenactments with dialogue attached to a doc format, like a documentary format, count as scripted? I would think no, but.
No, it's still a documentary. Although I will say this about documentary. One, there's other places that get funds. It's to that format you're describing. And now like factual series, you've seen them now coming where it's really a dramatized documentary. I don't know, documentary. We debate it. So it's something that we discuss with our board every year about, is that now within our wheelhouse, but today it's not. Still there, we have not seen it. It's still documentary. So dramatization is still not us. Reality is still not us. Even sketch shows, if you have a sketch show and it's a lot of improv, some have been eligible, some have been not. It depends on the format of your structures. So
Okay.
in those cases, if you're still not sure and I didn't answer you on the call, or you think of it afterwards, just reach out to us at info@ and request a call and say you've got an eligibility question and you don't want to waste your time applying, if you can just get it answered quickly by our team.
Cool. One other question is, if we're applying as the writer producer, how much previous experience is permitted? You mentioned you aren't looking for green folks. I think you said you do want to
We are
support
looking
new.
for you can't be green. A short film is enough. Like a short film with the writer, with the producer, it's all the same. So you can have made a short film, and that's enough for us. Yeah, that's why that mentor role is really important, because if you come in and the only thing you guys have done is a short film, you might be up against people who have written on a series or a web series or even been part of a team. And it's one of the toughest parts, even in the regions. It's one of the toughest parts is we got to find a way to network yourself into getting someone attached to your project that's a little bit more experienced than you. We don't have the requirement of you being more than a short film experienced, but your application will be stronger if you attach someone who has experience.
Similar type of question, but for an EP role, for a development, are there certain qualities or definitions of that role that IPF wants to see?
No, that's a good one. You can, we've seen that role take a few different things. It's not a role that really make or breaks a project. The problem we've seen is when you've got one name that's the executive producer, the writer, the something, and then you start feeling that's a risk factor. It's how can one person pull off all of these things? Most of the time, a lot of people don't even attach an executive producer, but sometimes maybe you've got a slightly larger production company that is got, they're loaning their expertise to your project, even though you're the creator, etc. So that person will sit in the executive producer, but so should you. You should be. We don't. All those contracts will be discussed during the development phase. So our development application doesn't need too much on those details. But we've seen it where it's a partner. We've seen it where there's 6 names in there and it's everyone that's both the writer, the creator, the something else, the star. Those don't make or break a project for us. Really, what you want to do is just put your best foot forward with your production team as a whole, and the writer, and then that mentor that's attached, the story editor or the development executive.
Cool. And then last question that I see here is, can projects include VR?
No, not today. That is such, okay, so I would like to hear that pitch offline. I would email,
I think it's
please.
more of a generic question, but yeah.
Okay, but so if you have, we haven't funded one yet, so we've talked about this. Would it be eligible, interactive? It's really not the core of what we do, but I would be very interested in try. So what I would say is that's an eligibility question that I would take to my team, and we would talk about that. On a similar question that we get is audio only podcast. So scripted podcasts are currently not eligible. We do video and audio pieces. VR could be. I think it would be it's just a 360 version of the storytelling. So I'd be on the position of that it would be eligible and it would be unique, and as long as the characters and stories fit the medium. On the flip side, we don't do audio only, and it's also something we debate every year. But I can't speak. I would have to have the team answer that. So if you have an actual concept, let's talk about the concept and the application in the next couple of weeks. Whoever that is, just email info@ and say I have a VR. I was told to ask about eligibility, and we'll book a call.
And then the last question before we move to Bell Fund is, how many projects on average are chosen? And we can, I guess, if you want to separate.
Great question. Yeah, no, we get each year is different. Our demand seems to have grown, and because of the CMF's partnership with us, we're able to fund last year and this year. I can confirm for 2024, 30 projects. So 30 projects will be selected. Last year we had 200 applications, so that's about 15% will be funded.
Decent ratio.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. If you guys could just keep it to the round numbers for me, this makes it way easier for me. I don't have to do math. Yeah, so
Awesome.
that's roughly that, and that's pretty good. We the first season we were funding 10. The second year, because of the success, we got partnered with the CMF, and they allowed us to fund 20. Then the program continues to grow, and the CMF, their support has allowed us to get to 30, and this year will be 30 as well. So we're really happy about that. And then the obvious next question is, how many are funded for production out of that? Last year it was 10. So you got about a 15% chance in the development deadline, but if you're through, you got about a 30-ish% chance of production funding.
Awesome. Well, I guess that's a perfect way to end off this section.
And I'll stick around as long as I can. So if there's questions at the end, I'm happy to also join. Okay,
cool.
Thank you.
And awesome. Thank you, John. I'm going to pass this off to Kate again, just to get us to the next section.
Yeah. So am I throwing this to Rachel now or to Marsha? Sorry.
Marsha, yes.
Yes. Okay. So it's thanks, John. That was great. It's my pleasure to introduce Marsha Douglas. She brings over 20 years of experience in production, financing, policy, advocacy, regulatory, and corporate social responsibility in screen-based media. She is the newly appointed executive director, if I've got that right, of the Bell Fund, and previously was at the CMF and CMPA just prior to that. So is
Marsha should be.
There she is.
Hey, okay. Kate.
Over to you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you, Kate and Leah, for having us and for organizing. I'll be brief because who you really want to hear from is the amazing Rachel, who's here on this call. We'll walk you through it. But I wanted to just say hi and introduce myself in this role. And it is a tough act to follow, John. Good job. But thank you for thank you for having us here too, because much like John and the IPF, the Bell Fund does have a program that supports short form digital content. And one key differentiator is we will also do unscripted. Just really super quick for anybody who's interested. The Bell Fund, I think, not quite as old as our friends at IPF, but has been around since 1997. So we predate the millennia. We have 3 main programs: television, Slate, and of course, why we're here today, short form digital. A quick note, we haven't landed on our deadlines quite yet this year, and much like a lot of the funds, we're seeing a lot of downward pressure in terms of our revenue sources, so it's constantly a work in progress with our board in terms of managing how much is available in these programs, but I can confirm we will have all 3 programs this year, but we haven't landed on deadlines yet, and they may be different than last year. They may, hopefully not a big change, but we're trying to get those out as soon as we can. So one last quick thing, we have offices in Toronto and in Montreal. So if anybody here is French or has questions for our French team, that is run by Pierre and Anaïs and Ellie in Montreal, or in our Toronto office, we have Suzanne, myself, Abigail, and of course, I will now turn it over to Rachel, who is our senior business analyst and your key point of contact with questions for short form digital. Rachel will also correct if I've missed anything or said anything wrong there.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Marcia and Leah and Kate. I'm really happy to be here today. And before I get into my super formal presentation, I just wondered who here has applied to BellFund before. You could just like raise your digital hand or your actual hand, give a thumbs up. Okay, I'm seeing, okay, I see some familiar faces. Cool. And who has applied to short form specifically? Same group? Okay. And is anybody here that hasn't applied, is anybody planning to apply this year? You might have your video off, but okay, I see a few. That's great. Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my presentation, and I'll take questions at the end just because I'm kind of not as good at multitasking as John, but it's not going to be super long, and we'll have time for a Q&A. So just give me one sec.
You always speak so clearly, more clearly than me, Rachel. So.
It's just because I'm reading a script, but thank you. Okay. Can everybody see that? Perfect. Okay, so yeah, thanks again to Web Series Canada for having me today. Again, I'm Rachel Feldblum-Wood, so I'm the Senior Business Analyst at the BellFund. I work in the Toronto office, obviously, and today we're going to provide an overview of the short form digital series program. I won't touch too much on the other programs just because time's limited, but we are super available to answer questions at any time, so feel free to reach out. info@bellfund.ca is probably the fastest way. Check out our website. We've got a lot of recordings of past webinars and clinics on there, so there's a lot of resources at your disposal. And yeah, so if we run out of time and we don't get to all of your questions, definitely follow up because we're happy to help. So before I get started, I'll give you some context about the BellFund. Marcia did touch on this, but we're a certified independent production fund. And this means that we operate as a not-for-profit with financing from Bell TV to support Canadian independent producers in the development and production of great Canadian content. Other certified independent production funds are the Shaw Rocket Fund, the Independent Production Fund, the TELUS Fund, and Quebecor Fund. Since 1997, the BellFund has received over $275 million in financial contributions from Bell TV and has supported over 2,300 applications. We support the production of short-form digital series, fiction and nonfiction, and as Marcia said, the production of TV series, slate development, and we also have an industry development program, and this is a program to sponsor industry organizations. So the BellFund is committed to supporting a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive industry across Canada. This means supporting screen-based producers and creators who identify as Black, Indigenous, and those from racialized communities, screen-based producers and creators from underrepresented groups, including but not limited to 2S LGBTQIA+, and persons with disabilities, emerging screen-based producers, creators, and teams, gender parity, and regional representation, as well as OLMC communities. The guiding principles have always been about ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to succeed in this program, supporting underrepresented voices by lowering the barriers to entry, like needing a broadcaster license in order to apply, was the driving force behind the creation of the short-form digital series program in 2017. Also, we are a national fund, so we love to see interest from across Canada, in particular outside of Ontario and Quebec and outside of major centers. Okay, so on to the program information. The short form digital series program is a selective program that supports Canadian independent producers and creators by funding premium original series for online distribution, specifically the production of fiction, which includes drama, comedy, and children's and youth programming, and nonfiction, which includes documentary, lifestyle, and factual programming. Financing is limited to any 2 seasons of a particular series. A series must be a minimum of 6 episodes with a minimum episode runtime of 5 minutes and a maximum episode runtime of 20 minutes. We developed this program in part because emerging and mid-career producers are not always afforded the same opportunities as super established producers in the traditional linear broadcasting system. And when we talk about emerging, we're referring to screen-based producers, directors, or writers who have not yet acquired extensive experience, but have at least 1 credit as producer, director, or writer in a professionally produced screen-based project, digital or TV series, short or feature. We get a lot of questions about this, so I also want to mention that an applicant must operate as a Canadian independent production company. And while incorporation is not required at application, the applicant must be prepared to be incorporated if the application is recommended for funding. So there are a number of eligibility requirements to review before you apply. You must own or control the copyright, have a 2-minute proof of concept demo, have a digital platform or channel pre-approved by BellFund, more on that later, have a license agreement or commitment letter from your platform or channel, a fully financed plan, and a preliminary audience development plan. Also, while this isn't an eligibility requirement, if you're an emerging creator or producer, it could be useful to seek out mentorship. Again, it's not required, but sometimes people find it helpful, especially if it's their first time applying to a large fund. An application is a lot of work. The fund is super competitive, and we want to see strong applications. So ideally, you have someone on board on your team who's done this before or who can at least look over the application. So your proof of concept or your demo, it's a critical component of your application, and it gives the jury a great sense of the tone and quality of your production. It must be comprised of original footage from your company, and it should feature your key on-screen talent. Remember that even though you're not physically in the room while the jury is deliberating, your demo is. So it's your opportunity to vouch for the project. It's kind of like a seat at the table when you're not physically there. Also, if you're applying for a subsequent season, it's just important to remember that you can use or adapt the trailer from the previous season, provided it reflects the look and feel of the proposed new season. But you want to include key on-screen talent if possible, some updated narration, maybe title cards, just something to indicate that it's not the same season. Remember that with up to $200,000 in funding available, there's an expectation that the quality will be high. And keep in mind that since the proof of concept demo, it's a mouthful, are considered development costs, you can recover some of these costs in your production budget by listing them in the development section. Also, as John mentioned, you can apply to IPF's development stream to create a trailer, so that's something to keep in mind. And if you don't have the resources to produce a proof of concept demo, but you do have 2 or 3 projects in development, you could also consider applying to our Slate Development Fund. The deadline for Slate's usually the end of November, so it's not coming up super soon, but it will before the end of the year. And one of your development projects in your Slate could absolutely be a short form digital series, and it could be a trailer or demo for that series. So check out our website for more info or email us at info@bellfund.ca. We're happy to answer Slate eligibility questions there. And so unlike IPF, you do need a confirmed platform to apply to BellFund. So John mentioned that there are some differences between eligibility criteria with the different funders, and this is a key one to keep in mind. So this is another main eligibility trigger for short form. And it's the biggest hurdle for applicants in my estimation, just based on inquiries and feedback that I've received. So thinking about the platform or channel early is really key. It's critical to your success. So it's very important to us that you find a platform or channel that will enable your content to be seen. So that's why there's such an emphasis on it. The channel must be available to Canadians, and it needs to demonstrate that it markets to Canadian audiences, even if the platform's foreign owned. And it should also feature original premium quality entertainment content that's comparable to the series that Bellfund has financed in the past. And you can actually get a good sampling of those series by going to bellfund.ca. We've got a funded projects page, and you can watch most of the short form series that we've financed. So that is a very handy tool. You can apply with a broadcaster digital channel like CBC Gem, OTV Go, or APTN Lumi, or you can apply with a non-broadcaster digital platform or channel that's acceptable to Bellfund. If you go with this option, you must submit our digital platform pre-approval form at least 3 weeks prior to the application deadline if your channel or platform has not been previously approved. All non-broadcaster platforms do need pre-approval by Bellfund prior to application, and Bellfund reserves the right to determine the acceptability of the service. So check out the form and definitely get in touch if you have any questions about it. We also have another handy tool on the website, bellfund.ca, and it is a list of some of the platforms and channels that have been approved in the past. So feel free to check that out too. We know that it can be a challenge to find an eligible platform, but there are options. You just have to think broadly about the platforms and channels that are available to you. We've approved a number of YouTube channels and other digital platforms in the past. Here are some examples. The Kinda TV YouTube channel has over 260,000 subscribers and over 150 million views. That's one that we've seen quite a number of times. Also, the Marble Kids YouTube channel has over 100,000 subscribers and almost 80 million views. There are, these are the types of metrics that we're looking for, but we know that not all channels will be quite as robust. It's just sort of an indicator for you to understand sort of the quality of the channels and platforms that we've approved before, but we are really open. You know, if you have one in mind, for sure, submit that platform pre-approval form. We'll review. You just want to show that the channel has a following and that the audience is already engaged. So another example of a platform would be Caribbean Tales TV. That's an eligible platform that we saw for a project called Garvey's Ghost. Shudder and the Fantasy Network are two that have come through before. Those are good examples of genre-specific platforms. Distributor to help you find the right platform or channel for your series before the deadline. Apple TV and the Roku channel are good examples that we've seen before. But in both cases, there was also a distributor on board to broker the relationship with the channel. If this seems like a viable option for you, but you don't have the relationship in place to get a commitment, you could think about working with a distributor to get to the platform. It could be a really good stepping stone. You still need a commitment from the platform or channel at application, but this can help get you there. And I'm not sure where to start looking, where you should start looking for a distributor, but you might consider reaching out to the CMPA or even the Canadian Academy just for ideas. As mentioned, the other option is a broadcaster digital platform or channel like CBC Gem, OTV Go, APTN Lumi. So when deciding who to approach, you want to think about where your target audience is going to find your series. For example, what platforms are out there? What's their focus? And what audience do they target? Essentially, what's the best home for your series? APTN Lumi supports Indigenous content, and horror seems to be an interesting genre for them. Some of the series we've supported for Lumi are DJ Burnt Bannock, Shadow of the Rougarou. Those are two that come to mind. OutTV Go supports 2S LGBTQIA+ content. Series like Avocado Toast, Ezra, Womb Envy. Many of these are available and super binge-worthy, awesome series to check out. So yeah, definitely check out OutTV Go. I don't know that it's called OutTV Go anymore. I think it's just maybe now OutTV. I think it just falls under the umbrella heading. But anyway, another example would be that Blue Ant has been working with a number of FAST channels. FAST channels are free ad-supported streaming TV channels. An example would be Homeful, and we have approved platforms like that in the past. Also, Super Channel Online features a variety of types of content, so these are good places to check out. At time of application, you'll need a license agreement, commitment letter, or detailed deal memo from a Bellfund approved platform or channel that outlines any financial contribution, license fee, and or advances, revenue sharing if applicable, marketing support, and a plan to make the series available in Canada within 24 months from notification of funding. While you don't need to have a license to be eligible, it's important to think of this as a business arrangement. And although a cash commitment is not required, it does show that the platform is invested in making the series a success. If this is not on the table, supporting your audience development activities or providing mentorship are also meaningful ways for the platform to show support. So think outside the box and see what they can offer. Any show of support is a show of support, so that bodes well. The next area I want to focus on is the finance plan. So funding for the production of your series is available as a non-repayable contribution of up to $150,000. A producer can request up to 75% of production costs, up to a maximum request of $150K, but they must fill the other 25% piece of the pie with other financing sources. Bell Fund doesn't fund 75% of the production costs very often, but we have seen that happen. On average, Bell Fund financing represents about 40% of the financing, but again, we see a wide array of scenarios. Other sources of financing might include things like broadcaster or digital platform license fees, federal or provincial tax credits, sponsorships, in-kind contributions, producer investments or deferrals, and provincial agencies or other funders. If you include tax credits in your finance structure, just make sure that you clearly demonstrate eligibility. There are tabs for this in our budget. You want to provide calculations and include a maximum of 90% of anticipated tax credits in the finance structure. Bell Fund's non-repayable contribution is considered assistance and it will grind tax credits. So we just flag this to make sure that you include this in your calculations. So next, I'm going to talk about audience development. Funding for the audience development of your series is available as an additional non-repayable contribution of up to $45,000. This can comprise up to 100% of the audience development budget, meaning with short form, with production funding, the Bell Fund request can comprise 75%. With audience development, it could be 100%. It certainly doesn't have to be. Casting the net is always great. If you have other sources or you want to invest into your audience development, that always looks great, but you don't have to. It's not an eligibility requirement. And just to talk a little bit about audience development, because it's more and more important, just in terms of short form digital series and getting them out there. Many of you will remember the days when a producer delivered their series to a broadcaster and that was it, case closed. The rest of the work and the responsibility of letting the audience know that the series was coming was on the broadcaster. Today, obviously, audiences watch content on a wide range of devices and platforms, from social media to streaming services, and still to traditional broadcaster channels. When you chose your platform, or when you choose your platform, you'll decide that your series is geared toward a specific audience. Maybe they love sci-fi or fantasy content. Maybe they're tweens and they want to see themselves reflected in the content that they watch. Maybe they're fans of contemporary Indigenous stories. Your job is to drive traffic to those series through an awareness campaign targeted at the audience that you've identified. So at application, you'll basically submit a 2-pager, which is just a quick preliminary audience development plan. And then if your project is successful, we require a comprehensive audience development plan and budget about 60 days prior to principal photography. And we have outlines for both of these documents, all of these documents on our website. It's just trying to give you the high level info, but we can definitely discuss more detail later. And then a word about ScreenMiner. So the Bell Fund, Shaw Rocket Fund, and TELUS Fund are piloting Magnify Digital's new ScreenMiner audience analytics platform, called ScreenMiner. It used to be called Viewer-Centric. Some of you might remember that title. This allows for the standardization of audience data collection, measurement, and analysis, and reporting requirements. Basically, ScreenMiner is an analytics platform that helps you to aggregate data from multiple sources and helps bring meaning to that data. You'll be using social media channels like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to engage with your audience and then move them to your platform or channel. Successful applicants who receive financing are required to set up an account with ScreenMiner, and they are provided with a license to use the platform. This is a great benefit to producers, as the goal is to make collecting all of your digital data from all of your sources much easier and to make reporting smoother. And we hope that as more funds start to require these plans, they'll also use ScreenMiner so that they don't have to report separately to each one. So, okay, finally, tips. I'm really going through this quickly so that we have time for a Q&A. So attendance at an application clinic is a requirement for first-time applicants, and everyone's invited. So even if you're not a first-timer, consider coming to a clinic or watching a clinic recording. They are super helpful. they get into the weeds of the application in a way that the webinars do not. What I've done today is similar to one of our webinars, kind of an abridged version, but the clinics are a deep dive into each piece of documentation. So we look at the document checklist, we look at the assessment criteria, and we correlate where points are awarded and what's needed in each section of documents. So highly recommend. Once our 2024 deadlines are announced, you'll be able to sign up for clinics for Slate and short form. And they're basically held as virtual meetings similar to this. It's a group of usually about 25 participants. We provide a deep dive, like I said. It's a good format because you can also unmute yourself to ask questions. That part will not be shared online, so you can talk about project-specific stuff if you want to. And also sometimes other producers have an answer that we might not, or just insight that we don't have. So it can be nice to see producers sort of sharing information and getting a lot out of it that way. And then just before I finish, so remember, BELFUND is very competitive, typically oversubscribed. If you have any weaknesses like in application writing, production, audience development, partner up with others. As John mentioned, your team is super important. It's a key part of the assessment. Also, take a look at that assessment criteria document, even just as a first step to applying. Our guidelines, of course, are super important. So is the assessment criteria. So is the document checklist. Just gives you an idea of where points are awarded. So it helps understand how you can put your best foot forward. And lastly, yeah, just always call, get in touch, email. We're here. We're here to help. We want to see people succeed. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'll stop screen sharing.
There are some questions in the chat if you would like me to prompt you.
Yes, please. That would be great.
So the first one is, must all of the talent be Canadian in an application?
So you do have to have a certain amount of points. We do in our project details form, the first page is that chart that you can, you list your different key creatives and figure out if you have 6 out of 10 CAFCO points. So sometimes we see personnel that is not Canadian. You would identify them on the transactions by all parties form under non-Canadian costs, but we are trying to fund Canadian projects, so it's super important. We would, I think, probably you might get more points for having a fully Canadian team, and also always reach out if you have a specific question because we can sort of take these on a case by case. Every situation is different, so let us know.
Cool. The next question is, if the broadcast or online streamer is regional or provincial rather than national, is that okay?
So it depends because sometimes things are sort of geo-blocked. So if it's a streamer and their content isn't available to all Canadians, that can be an issue. It really depends. Like we have seen a couple of we don't traditionally fund or support community channels, but we have a couple of times approved On TV, which is a community broadcaster channel, I believe in Northern Ontario. And it's because it serves a specific community and it's really well known there. And so there are situations like there's one in the Yukon as well that we approved where we will say yes if it's a remote area and it's, it's a popular resource in the area. Generally, though, we do like to see that the content is available to all Canadians. So I think there might have been an issue at some point with TELUS Storyhive because of that. I think it was geo-blocked. There was something around that made it ineligible. But yeah, typically it needs to be accessible to all Canadians.
I can help with that a tiny bit just to add on to Rachel.
Please.
Community channels are not eligible because they're actually already funded through another part of regulated funding, but channels that serve smaller communities in terms of, to your point, Rachel, like regional communities, those could potentially be open if you can demonstrate how they're best benefiting the community. So TELUS Storyhive is considered a community channel. It's a CRTC designation, and currently BELFUND doesn't allow those to trigger projects. Same with like Bell Fibe One or whatever the Bell community channel is. As an example.
That's one that we've seen for sure. Thank you, Marcia.
That does help. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So for Slate development, which I know you didn't really talk much about that, but do all of the projects need to have the platform confirmed or can some be pending?
No, they don't need to be confirmed. Essentially, the eligibility trigger for Slate is that you have market interest for each project. So you do need a market partner, but they're not committing to the production or the streaming of the project. They're basically just committing to sort of endorsing the idea at application and then having a meeting, halfway through the deliverables, providing feedback. Like we want a meaningful involvement with the market interest partner, but it's not required that they sign on after that. It's really just for development. It's just a show of support in the early stages.
Whereas for the production funding, you do need like
Yeah.
commitment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's a distinction to note to everybody.
Yeah.
Is there a minimum show of support for license fee you like to see? What might be asked of a small platform?
Honestly, we've seen super small contributions. In my opinion, if it's a broadcaster platform, I mean, well, I don't think this is an opinion. I think broadcaster platforms generally provide a license fee. But if it's a non-broadcaster platform, I mean, many of them don't. So as I was saying before, any show of support is meaningful. And if they're able to provide some kind of financing, that's great. So I guess it's just based on the size of the platform or channel and what they offer.
Rachel, can I ask a question here, or for Leah and you, clarification? There's the platform or the commitments for eligibility, and then there's a thing to keep in mind around competitiveness, right? And so Rachel talked about how much like IPF, our programs generally are oversubscribed. So while you may not need a significant contribution, a project that gets a greater contribution from a market partner will definitely be more competitive in the selection process, as long as, again, it's the right platform for the audience of the project. Is that fair to say, Rachel?
100%. Yeah. Competitiveness is a big piece of it. So yeah, what gets through the door might not get funded if it's a super strong round and other people have that support. It could give them more points in that area. So again, back to the assessment criteria, it really does show you how to make a competitive application, and that's part of it.
It's a good question. I'm going to jump in as well. So put a little more context and color. We don't require it. As I said, Marsha's 100% right. It makes you competitive though, so it's relevant. So while we don't require it, you should. I would also say a trend I see is that the earlier you are in your discussion with the platform, the more likely you are to have a higher license fee. Sometimes when you see that smaller license fee of say $5,000, that's almost always like a tax credit trigger versus something that's like a $50,000 or a $100,000 license, which in web series would be a good size, a big size. That is more their commitment to your creative. And so there's different types of conversations you're having. That smaller budget might be kind of a lasting tax credit thing, and they're going to help you out with some small money. But if you can talk earlier about the creative and they have buy-in during the development phase, or leading into production, you'll be in a better position to get a larger license. That helps, which can contribute to your production financing.
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful context as well, to nuance to note. A couple more questions. There's one about the slate again, slate development. What are the eligibility requirements and market trigger for the fund? I mean, that's a whole, that you go through that in the clinics, right? In detail. It's a big question.
It's a big question. I would say check out our website. There's a slate program page, which kind of gives some broad strokes. Our guidelines are there. Again, we have webinars, clinics recorded. The main thing is having a market partner and having eligible types of content in your slate. But and you need minimum 2 projects, max 3, but I'll leave it at that.
And then to confirm that you accept factual short form in addition to scripted, right?
Yes, we do. We do.
Okay. Another question it's always about the distribution and broadcast. It seems to be one of the biggest hurdles for people. How do you get a broadcaster to work with you? Because I know it's hard to work with for upcoming producers. Like, do you have any tips? I guess would be the question.
I personally don't. I know that having those conversations early in the process, I believe John said that, and that's something that we've talked about internally as well. That really helps. Sometimes working with a distributor and having them be your bridge, that can help. But otherwise, I don't really have many tips. It's just kind of having an awareness of which broadcaster digital platforms are out there, what sorts of content they target. Like, like I said about APTN Lumi, we've seen some good horror series on APTN Lumi. So, great Indigenous horror series, just kind of having an understanding of what that broadcaster is looking for, and then maybe cold calling. I don't have anything really more than that.
Well, and again, for short form, it doesn't need to be a broadcaster, right? Rachel gave some great examples of other potential platform partners that aren't broadcasters. So in the short form space, you can be a little more creative and inventive and find new partners. And I think, not to speak for John, but I think you mentioned the same thing, John.
Yep, that's exactly right.
If
Yeah.
you can afford it, go to markets like, that's a good place to
Yeah.
meet them. I know that that's the way I've met everyone that I know in development and platforms and stuff, is when I go to markets. So if you can afford to go.
There's different partnership models, and I hope I'm stating the obvious, but you should not be paying someone. There are pay to play platforms where it's like, oh, if I pay them, I'll get on their platform, and then it's a rev share. And so we don't have an ineligibility. That's just, don't do that. That's bad business. You could do rev share. Rev share is not great. So you have this rev share thing where they're like, meanwhile, you might as well self-publish, or you can be unless they're going to bring marketing dollars. What you should be going for every time is a license fee. You should be trying to get that license fee, even if it's small, to help you trigger some other part of your financing. But they have the money. But I have seen some questions in the past about, oh, there's this platform I'm going to go on, and if I pay them this much, they'll get me audience and I'll rev share. And you shouldn't do that. You should not go to pocket to distribute your show. Hopefully that's obvious.
Yeah, that's important to note, because big difference. One other question about animated, like specifically adult skewed animated that isn't covered by Shaw Rocket Fund. Is that eligible?
We still don't support animated series. Unfortunately, it's not one of our areas. However, sometimes we see animated elements. I think we've talked about this before. Come to us, it's case specific. We've seen like maybe under 30% of animated elements in a series. Sometimes a nonfiction series incorporates that, as well as like stock footage and stuff like that. But no, generally we don't support animated series.
For Bell Fund, but I think IPF has done animated adult, right, John?
100%. Yep. Yeah, animated is eligible for the IPF.
Awesome. I think I've covered all the questions. Are there any other questions, last minute questions? We might actually finish at 2:00. Who knows?
Yeah.
I feel like I forgot that TO Webfest also brings out buyers.
Yes. Well, someone asked like which markets conferences do I recommend? I mean, for short form festivals, for short form is a great place. TO Webfest, other ones like Rio Webfest or LA, or you have to look at which ones. Basically, you should go to the ones that you're submitting to and that you can actually attend. Like the other markets like MIP-TV, Primetime, Real Screen, Banff, like those are obviously, and Kids Screen for kids and youth is like, they're more pricey, right? Like they're not as affordable if you're sort of an up and coming producer. So it just depends on what you're able to afford, really. I think it comes down to that.
I'll also say, we've heard from our producers that Just for Laughs in Montreal, If You're Comedy, they've made deals. They've had a deal happen at that marketplace, so that was worth it. I have not heard the same deal making success at Banff, for example. The value of Banff, we've heard from our producers, is really that Canadian networking and the information they've gained, but it wasn't a market per se. We're looking for other potential marketplaces, across Canada. Also, I would say that both for Ontario producers, Ontario Creates has the global market development fundings, and which you can apply to. So you can apply for funding to go to markets and travel. Telefilm also has something that is a potential discount on accreditations and stuff. We're trying to find where our footprint is. It's very expensive, but we're trying to find our way to create a marketplace internationally for our producers. And so Series Mania, it's in France. It's a big deal to go there, but it looks like a really great IP driven, they care about short form festival. And so if you have the means, or you can apply to one of those funds potentially to get some coverage, we are trying to find a way to go there and support you guys. So we'll host that marketplace cocktail event specifically for Canadian short form producers to make deals internationally, hopefully. So we're working on it. And there is funding that you could potentially apply for with Telefilm and Ontario Creates. So there may be others. I'm not an expert, but it's important.
Somebody put Creative BC in the chat. I would just to add to John, CMPA often has missions that you can apply to. I don't know if you have to be a member. And then in addition, some of the other community organizations have been getting support through CMF for attendance in various places, especially for creators who are coming from equity seeking communities. So you can also check out things like the ISO, or I think BSO, Coalition Média, BIPOC TV and Film, also for markets within Canada as well, because we didn't get into this, it's complicated. Theoretically, you could do co-productions in the web series space, but your budgets are so low that it doesn't actually make a lot of business sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, it does make sense to look at where the markets are in Canada to start with meeting the Canadian platforms and partners and producers. But
Yeah,
I guess
Couple
that's
good
just
points.
a clarification question for all of you. This is a question for everyone. And if I don't know if anyone else had this question, but does it have to be a Canadian platform, or can it be outside of Canada?
It does not have to be Canadian, just accessible to Canadians. And we do like to see that there's Canadian content on there, like that they make a point. You know, some platforms will have like a Canadian content playlist or something like that. So we want to see that there's marketing to Canadians, but it can be Canadian or foreign owned.
Maybe just one more point on the Just for Laughs. The reason that seems to work is because it's genre specific. We've also heard the same feedback for Fantasia, which is it's a film festival in Montreal that's kind of that sci-fi horror. And we've heard of short form series getting deals there. And Blood in the Snow, which is a much smaller festival and is within Toronto. It's in Ontario, also has some feedback, also had some deals making, and we're trying to bridge into Whistler is turning into a half decent marketplace as well. We're working with them on short form, so potential. Thank you for mentioning Creative BC. There's a bunch of funding for market travel, and I'm not familiar with them all, so.
Awesome. Are there any final questions before we close off today? Oh, will you look at platforms like TikTok?
We will. So we have supported one TikTok series. It's not out yet, but we have. So it depends. It would need to meet our criteria, and that can be challenging. I know TikTok content is generally really short, so it would be a longer discussion, but it's not a no. It's a yes. It's just a discussion.
We're also a yes, but I rank it. It's self-publishing in many ways. So I don't know if there's a deal to be had with TikTok and they're going to market your thing, but when my tier one is someone paid you a license for your show, and so they're taking risk with you and they have a marketing plan or budget even attached. The tier two would be all of those social platforms that have tons of audience, but it's an ocean of content. And how are you getting known? So what are they bringing to the table to help you get seen? Or are you on your own? Well, that's kind of a self-publishing rev share model. And that's really hit and miss. There's a lot of expertise in rocking the algorithm. And then everything below that is the other stuff, and don't pay. You should not be paying, but self-publish is okay. I'd love to know I haven't seen a TikTok deal yet that made me confident that it was going to make money. You will get audience if you do the algorithm right, but I don't know if you're going to have a business model.
But
And
yeah,
in Canada, I'm not sure. In the US, maybe, but
yeah. To your point, Michelle, yes, if it was a self-publishing TikTok channel that had a really large following, that's the kind of thing that we might consider. I think that's what happened the time that it did get funded. So yeah, it just like with YouTube, right? Like I think you've inquired about those channels as well. It's a similar sort of process of assessing the channel.
This is an important note. I'm going to make, this is a really, I don't know if any of us, if we covered it yet. our little discussion there's highlighting an important note I forgot to mention, which is you're going to apply to different funds to finance your project, but each fund actually has different objectives. So you can't submit one application. You really need to think about your application in the context of who you're applying to, even though it's the same project. Bell Fund is a grant, and they're interested in viewership. The IPF is an equity investor. We're interested in your business model long term. So you actually, and then if it's a provincial agency, they're probably into job creation more than anything. They want to see how many crew and how many man hours are happening within the region that they're, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is a miss that some new producers, I would say it reverse, experienced applicants know how to speak into the listening of the fund they're applying to, which would be, to me, they're describing how they're planning to make money in the long run. And to other funds, they're talking about how much viewership growth they're going to get. And to someone else, they're going to talk about job creation. And that is an important distinction for your one project.
Sure. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Rachel or Marcia?
Oh, that sums it up for me.
Awesome.
I will just say that, yes, audiences, but I don't think that's the exclusive focus of Bell Fund. We're looking at a lot of different pieces. So to go back to Rachel's excellent presentation, you can check our evaluation grids that are available online. Just one note on that. We left last year's up so that you can see them, but we are in the process of updating. So check back throughout the year. And in case we didn't say this, although I think you did, Rachel, there's a tiny button at the bottom of our website to sign up for updates. Sign up for updates.
I'm going to do that right now, Marcia.
And one last question from, are either of the funds seeing a rise in provincial co-productions? Like interprovincial co-production?
I wouldn't say a rise. I think it's been about the same for us since launching the programs. Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard a lot more questions about it. I don't know if I've seen a rise. I think we're going to see a rise. I think it's a smart way to think about funding. You saw it happen on the TV side, and I don't know why it wouldn't happen on the web series side. It's very smart, especially because each province, their strategies change. And so it's smart for a producer in any region to understand how all the various provinces function and leveraging all the opportunity you have within the country. So I think we're going to see it, but not more discussion, but I haven't actually seen the growth yet.
Awesome. Well, I guess that's a kind of a future seeing way to end off the call today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, everyone who came on to the call today and for all your wonderful questions. I will just reiterate, you can always, this isn't like the end of asking questions. You can always email John at the IPF or Marcia and Rachel at Bell Fund, and they're there to answer your questions. And also, again, feel free to reach out to us at Web Series Canada if there's any way we can be of support. And if you are interested in membership or have questions about it, please let us know as well. And we'll end it off today at that. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Good time.
Bye.
Bye,
Have a good day.
everybody. Bye.